I'd like now to give the floor to Mr. Ashraf. He is an IT expert. He is the founder for Fawry company, and it's the biggest company for e-payments in Egypt. He has a long expertise in financial management, IT. He assumed many posts in different companies. He worked in the sales department in IBM and in the holding company for Raya, and of course he is an MBA accredited from foreign country. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Dr. Abla and her team in the center. First thing, I have many questions to Dr. Mustafa. Of course, there are many difficulties facing tax collectors because of digital economy and intangible transactions like downloading music or buying software, or people working freelance and getting lots of money without anyone being able to register this. Of course, Facebook makes millions of dollars from ads and no one can ring fence that. So Uber is easier to identify because it's part of the e-commerce. I'm not really a legal expert, so I'm not aware of all these concepts, but when it comes to participatory economy, we have something tangible. Someone is renting a property, someone is working in a financing system, and this is the service he gets. These are all problems, and as Dr. Mustafa said, these problems are universal and not exclusive to Egypt. So 6 months ago, France attacked Google in France because it did not pay its tax returns. So this problem is persistent all over the world. It's not a local one. But in my opinion, if we want to link local problems or compare local problems to the benefits digital economy offers, among the problems we have in Egypt is that no one knows the income of the people or the nature of transactions. So we don't have a clear vision to know definite information. Any services provided in a digital economy model should have or already have registered transactions. So if you want to pay, you would use your own credit card, which is registered in a bank. So an Egyptian institution actually knows of this transaction. So I have something to track. And this is actually happening. So with Uber and Kareem, for example, because there was much demand for hard currency. So if you are paying for a local product and then this money will be converted to the parent company, though the service is provided here and the value is created here, but the money is transferred abroad. So the bank stopped this, and the bank said that we will not accept any payments to Uber company. Uber is a merchant, so this payment would be directed to Uber. So the bank said we will not authorize any payments for Uber unless Uber starts or opens a bank account here, and then we will see how to transfer the money to the parent company. So this sheds the light on the ability to track data. So this is the good side of the matter. So when Dr. Mustafa said, and I avoid going into complicated details, maybe we can have what we call withholding tax, whether on consumer or someone else. So if I know that this consumer pays, then I can go for withholding tax, because the system is really known and it's within a legal and financial framework, and this institution might calculate this. No, now I need to clarify this. With here, neither the bank nor any other institution can do so, because the international company here, Uber for example, will calculate everything. So maybe she made 100 or 200, she will just calculate 1%. This is on the turnover, but banks cannot do so. So tax calculation and deduction on Uber will be done by Uber and not the post office or the bank. But you said that as a customer, I should be committed to pay VAT in accordance with the law. Even if you're referring to VAT, I refer to the two things. Even if you're VAT, this VAT should be borne by the consumer, but the income tax should be borne by the company. And anyway, you calculate it according to a certain percentage. So I'm not a legal expert and I'm not really aware of the legislations. So what I'm saying is that I can't trace the business size, the payment, the amount, the place, the time, to whom this money is paid. All the pieces of information can easily be tracked in any e-digital payment system. How to regulate this is out of my scope. But e-commerce, for example, has big transactions through Facebook. People start stores to sell, and customers actually buy. But how to link transactions and how to engage all the stakeholders? I can do so through a database for planning or for tax purposes or for whatsoever. So this is the positive side of the digital economy. So but the flip side is that people work outside the formal sector, so it's not really easy to trace the money they make. Thank you so much. The next speaker is Mr. Hatem Montaser. He is the executive partner in KPMG, and he has worked there since the 80s. And he is a board member of KPMG. And he is a member of the Accountant and Auditors Association. And he is the former head of investment committee in Business Association in Alexandria. I'd like to thank you all for your kind invitation, and I'd like to thank Dr. Mustafa for his insightful presentation. Actually, now we are in the game-changing phase. All the existing trade mechanisms have dramatically changed. So, of course, Dr. Mustafa have covered all the details on the tax systems, and I think we'd better not go into further details. But when it comes to data availability or goods and services circulation among individuals, whether B2B, B2C, or C2C, all these matters should be simplified So we should cover everything. So I agree with Mr. Ashraf. We should reach the customer. So if we are outside the B2B, business to business, so we should have a legislation cover. As for mobile phones, we all have mobile phones and we can easily get information, data, services and goods. I can download a book, I can pay for it, and no tax authority can supervise that, whether VAT or corporate tax. Also the ads available on website or on Facebook or on news sites are really immense. So what about the stamp duties, for example? There are other stakeholders to be engaged. We're not here referring to corporates or VAT only. What is the take of legislation on that? This is really difficult to delineate.
Usually we say that the tax is a mean, not a goal. So it's a mean related to economic development, society development, not just to collect tax, but the main goal or the event, the main goal is it's just a path of development. In Egypt, it seems that we are importers of information, importers of digital consumption, not exporters. Although Egypt has many potentials for the digital exportation, whether we are talking about the number of universities who are teaching IT and the applications of IT, or the quality of the graduates. I really met many of them, especially the graduates who have startups. They are really so distinguished about creations, and we can benefit from this in exportation. I do not want to say that Egypt can be used as a haven for the servers, but Egypt can create ideas to be an exporting country for the technology, not the technology per se, but the e-commerce or the information trade. So so it's not a tax issue, it is economic issue primarily. So how can we benefit from the potentials that we have in Egypt, and how can we benefit from this in exporting exporting the E? You have tackled the BEPS and the 15 criteria, and I think that the Egyptian legislation had touched upon many of these things, as the transfer price and many other things. Also, there is a great dilemma in the world, not only in Egypt. How can we develop this? Yeah, I think you covered many things, and thank you. Dr. Mustafa, I have a question. I have read the paper 100 times, but here the bone of contention here, that the activity has to be done or taking place through an establishment, and after that you are going to delve in another problem, which is the representative, whether he's residing inside or outside. I think this is the bone of contention, that Egypt signed the international treaties trying to find solutions, and you have really proposed some solutions, because yes, whether you have the right of signature, but you should be responsible for facilitating the signature, and you are going to pay anyway. So Egypt to sign these treaties or these agreements would be valueless unless the internal legislations or the internal legislative system is complying with these conventions. So to what extent are we complying? Because the taxation system, we already have problems in our taxation system. And yes, we are saying that we should tax Uber, but we have a complete sector who do not pay anything. The engineers, doctors, accountants, they do not pay taxes. And the informal sector, we cannot do anything. It's just a lump sum tax. And so we have issues. So we have issues in our basics. So to what extent that we can reach that, because the digital revolution is taking place in a fast pace, and so every day there is developments and advancements. Now there is supermarkets now without cash, without doors. You can take anything from the supermarket and you are considered that as a buyer. So you can take anything, put it in your bag, and it's okay. So all these things are taking place, and we are still far away. So I need you to answer my question before opening the podium for discussion. Yes, here there are some international organizations are imposing some commitments. We are just talking about one of criteria, but there are 15. I think they are imposing about 80 commitments, 80 something commitments. So I want them to send all these criteria to me to see where is the place of Egypt. And I found here in Egypt 4 procedures only that had been taken in 2005. So we need many things. Maybe I tackled 15, but if I'm going to talk about each procedure, there are some amendments in these agreements, and the most important thing that it's well known. If you once signed the multilateral agreement or memo, so you have to comply with the 15 standards, the 15 criteria, 15 commitment. Some of them are obligatory, as for instance, I think we are talking about investment nowadays, investment and the trust, and so one of the things they are here we'd like to provide certainty to the investor. So there is one of the standards called dispute resolution. There is something called that the Egyptian investor, if there is a kind of dispute, where would he go or where to resort? He will go to the taxation authority. If not, he's going to his own country, his home country. So what would happen? The taxation authority in this case is obliged or is committed to, if they find justified reasons, to go to address the other taxation authority. So if they didn't reach a solution, what would happen in this case? What would the investor do? So after they started this complying procedure, they started to talk about arbitration. Arbitration is an amazing idea, because the arbitration, I don't know why we didn't choose arbitration, because we are talking about the trust, the environment, the conducive and the environment, it's solving problems. So we don't want to have a double taxation systems. So each procedure should be the responsibility of group of workers, and we need to set a system to apply all these procedures. I'd like here to respond to Mr. Ashraf saying, when I talk about the income tax, it's not here the bank, or it's I know it's not your right. You can issue any legislations. There is no agreement that gives you the right to even to look, not to try. That's why I think that the system will make us benefit. They say that there is a problem and they are going to solve it, because we are not suffering. We are not the only one who are suffering. All the countries, even the UK and others, they are suffering. That's why they're studying what they're saying, that it's not the problem to pay the tax, but yes, you are not the one to collect the tax. It's not your right. So he is just the taxpayer. He has some commitments and he has to fulfill these commitments. This is as for the income tax. So what is the problem of the VAT? Now I paid some of money through Fawry. So do you know how much did I pay? If no, even if you know the first one, you would not know the second one. No. I do not agree. So now, currently, I'd like to to buy a good, buy something through Google. So can you here know what is the tax jurisdiction here, or no, tax competence. No, I don't know what's this tax competence term, but I'm going to give some examples that I know, because sometimes I don't understand the terminology. So now, in one of the years, Microsoft was giving me a CD compact disc, saying that this one costs 1 million pounds. So whether you are downloading, uploading, so the Microsoft here is deducting from their original accounts 20% or 30%, and this external body that I'm dealing with, I'm going to give them what proves that I have paid those taxes in Egypt, and they are free to deal with their tax authority, so without knowing their income, or so whatever the story is. So we have agreed on a percentage or something like that, and it is deducted from me. To a large extent, there are some mechanisms to prove the expenditure. So as long as you are going to prove the expenditure or the expenses, so there is nothing when you deal with anybody to say that they are going to deduct this, and I'm going to give you what proves that you have paid this taxes, to avoid any duality in paying taxes. As a consumer, yes, I just got the hint here from what you have said. As a consumer, I'm obliged, if I buy a digital service free of VAT, I'm here, I have to pay the VAT here. That's what I got from what you have said. So if I have a legal obligation or a legal commitment, how can we enforce this commitment? I don't know. That's why there is a disability in that we are all facing. This man bought this item from this shop, and even where they categorize the services and the goods. They say that this is general merchandise, this is fashion. So even the type of the trade and the type of the goods sold is known according to through the transaction taken. So that's why I'm trying to give you an easier solution, and tell me if I'm correct or not. I know two parties, I know everything about the two parties that I have. The question is, if I know everything, how can I and I have agreements about the duality of taxes. So I have general rules, and I have clear transactions. So I have the information. Yes, I have the information, and yes, and of course all of them is under the monitoring of the state. So I don't know what product that we can get from all of these things. Another point, especially when you have mentioned that the doctors, the accountants and engineers, yes, I really believe that we are dealing with a lot of merchants and traders. So to connect the chains together, this is the only mechanism. I have schizophrenia. For instance, X company is selling with 6 billion pounds, and those 6 billion pounds through people that we know well. So all of these things is registered in their books. So if I can do this manually or electronically, for sure I will reach something. So the value of the tax, we can discuss this later, but at least to have the information. When you talk about physicians, many of the physicians now, a big part of their income comes from the medical insurance, and from the clinics. So this is not the majority, or this is not the main portion of their income. But here, what does hinder me from trace this digitally. Yes, I can say yes. If your number is 114 and you have dealt with the hospital, this X hospital, and did the number of operations, by this way we can start taxing the doctors. So moving into digital payment and digital economy, even when I order something through the digital way, uh, so we can trace all these things. I know all these things, but how can we do that? So before answering, till now,
you don't have an electronic signature recognized in e-commerce, and the new blockchain cannot be traced. The system itself is not filed. All the data of this system is stored on the computer working in the blockchain, and you cannot erase that. It's part of the group. So if the state is not a party to this group, then the state knows nothing. So all the data you're referring to is not subject to the supervision or monitoring of the state. Yes, you are right, but 99% of the digital economic activities are not blockchain. We need to take something into consideration based on the example you said. Yes, you said that you're not a legal expert on taxation, but you cannot distinguish between service or a know-how, if it's subject to royalties or taxes. So according to the law, you are obliged, if you pay to a foreign company as royalties, then you should collect 20% and you should pay it. So you are referring to a business having or getting the know-how or the secret application of something. So this is different. According to the rules, this should be a withholding tax, but as for the services, this is a completely different story. Even traditionally, the company cannot leave any country without getting a tax declaration or a tax clearance form. So you cannot distinguish between assets, whether tangible or intangible, or services, and this is a real problem that we all face. Second, you are speaking to me as if information is available everywhere. So we will leave time for questions later. So we have 15 agreements that are signed, but certain paragraphs are not ratified yet because of the accessibility of data. So if someone asks you for a piece of information on financial institution, we cannot refuse to release this information based on data privacy. According to OECD, we cannot modify or sign an agreement without this clause. Even 15-year-old agreements are subject to the same. So we can say this, but things look really different when it comes to applying this. So that's why they started the transparency forum. You heard of Tunisia and the United Emirates. So now we're referring not only to OECD, we're referring also to EU and their grading systems. Of course, the availability of the data is important, but this information cannot enable a bank or any financial institution to collect taxes. Even when you have a mediary or intermediary to collect the tax, they only calculate the number and write a tax return every 3 or 6 months, but no post office, no a bank or other institution can impose or collect the tax. These institutions cannot work as tax officers, for example. So if you have a broken car, for example, and you hire someone to fix it, so he will tell you, I repaired this for a certain amount of money. But if someone else came to him and asked him, how do I repair my car, and then the person provided this information through a contract and promised to keep this information confidential, so this is still a service. But these two situations are subject to different rules. Once the corporate bears the obligation, and again, no financial institutions can collect VAT, so the best way is for the seller to collect the VAT. Of course, we need data to be available for our purposes. For people wanting to conduct research papers, for example,